You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello and welcome to another exciting adventure on Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Anna Covert. What a cool last name. And she actually has a podcast called The Covert Code. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah. Covert Code. And she's a Forbes bestselling author, digital marketing expert, and also a digital marketing fraud expert. And she consults with Fortune 500 companies. And she's also an author. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, awesome. I am so excited to have you because I would like for you, because we were talking about this earlier, and I'd like to have you just explain to people what is going on with the huge changes in SEO and AI, and how is that changing online search?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, what very few people know is that, did you know every single day there are over 250,000 websites that go live worldwide? That's like 175 a minute. That means that the strategies we used to use for the last 20 years, which we called SEO, which is search engine optimization, have now shifted into this new evolution of AEO, which means answer engine optimization, and GEO, which is generative engine optimization. And those sound fancy, but what they really mean is now people are changing the way that they search and find things. They're not just going to a search engine like Google Chrome or Safari, searching for something, and then what happened before? Up would pop ads. There could be 4 ads at the top of the page, and then was the organic search, which all of us companies were spending a lot of money on SEO to try to achieve one of those top placements. Now, what you'll notice when you do go to Google and search is that you're getting an AI generative answer instead of just a slew of paid ads and organic ads, spots. And so now we have what's called zero click, meaning the customer or the person who's searching for an answer to their question does not have to click on anything to be able to retrieve the answer in a summary from Google. And that's changing the way that companies are being found and the ability to advertise successfully and overcome those challenges of competitiveness.
Okay, so what we have, and I've noticed that. So now we don't have to click. So now we have to figure out how to get into that description, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
right. I figured that out. So that's the change. Now explain to people what GEO is, because we're hearing that a lot.
Yes. So GEO, and at first everyone immediately thinks, oh, that's location based, but it's not. So
No.
generative engine optimization is part 2. So we had SEO, that was the last 20 years. AEO, the last 3 years. That means that we are the answer to a question. Someone asks a question, you're the answer. You are recommended in this response. The next part is generative comparison. So if I say, okay, or if you look up in Chat PGT, who writes about digital advertising? I'll pop up, right? And so will some other people. And then after you ask it, well, who is the best person to talk about fraud, right? It's now going to look out into the universe of online to try to find out what is the best, how do I compare this answer and this answer to get the customer what they're really looking for? Is it value? Is it price? What are they looking for? And that's part of this generative response in the future we're working toward today.
Okay, so what do we do about all this?
It's a great question. So the first thing to do is really put on our detective hats and as a team come together and make a list of questions. What do you want? What do you want a customer to search for? And you be the result of that search. So come up with 5, 10 questions that are the ones you care most about. And then you're going to go into Gemini, which is Google. You're going to go into different engines because they all have a different result. And then you're going to start to ask these questions. And then you're going to look at who is showing up. Are you showing up as a response? And if you are, that's great, but you're not done yet. And if you're not, who else is showing up? Do you recognize those people? You can look always at the source. And then you're going to start to track the links of the recommendation because Google and Chat are going to show you what page online they found that was the result to pull that answer down. So then once we have these lists of, okay, these are our competitors, these are other places that are showing up when we should be showing up. Next step is to go visit those different sites and to start to look at how much content do they have. what is the keyword or keyword phrase? Is it, for instance, solar company near me, right? Or your
Mm,
business, blah, right? And
mhm,
that is the next step. And then I use some tools like, SpyFu or other SEO tools to determine how many keywords they have. There's one free one called Marketing Syrup. It's an extension on
mhm,
Chrome that I really recommend everyone get. And then you can insert it, and then you can look and inspect other people's websites and look through and see, do they have, what is their meta descriptions and meta titles? How many keywords do they have? And then your job with the team is to come up with a content strategy to write more content, articles, case studies on your website to have as many keywords or more as these people are showing up are. That's part one.
mm,
Now, part two, and this is critical, people don't realize, you must, the second you write any content at all, is to go to Search Console, Google Search Console, and you have to take the URL that you just published, pop it in to your page, and then request indexing. Because Google,
mm,
they are busy. There's 250,000 websites every single day that go live. Do you think that they're going to deploy a bot to come and look at your site? No. It could be years. You may, in fact, have thought that you were even findable. You might have a new website you just pushed live a couple of years ago. Yeah, the developer submitted it to Search Console. Do not you need to go check, because what we have found is even sites that, my agency and one of the best has done, we weren't even showing up recently. So we had to resubmit the
mm,
index. And another thing is Google changes the rules a lot. There's a big lawsuit going on against Google and antitrust. And the fact is that they will change the rules of how things are indexed, right? And some of those are very
mm.
valid reasons, but you need to be on top of it. You're not going to spend all this time writing content and then it's not being found.
This is mind-blowing for a lot of people. So, folks, what she's saying is just because you publish something on your website doesn't mean it's actually searchable. So what you're saying is you go to Google. How do they find Google Search Console? How do you find it? What's our URL on that?
You could just go right to Google Search Console. It'll pop right up. I think it's
You
search.google.
Google
Yeah, but search
and it
just
comes up,
Google. Hop right to the
and then
top.
you get a URL of the latest blog post. You get the URL and you have to index that. So you have to actually manually add that. Okay. Now, can AI add it? Can you get an agent to do that for you? Does a person have to do that?
That's a good question. There are, depending on what framework your website's built in, if it's WordPress or
Mhm,
Drupal or Joomla or Shopify,
mhm.
depending on the framework, there can be plugins that can do an immediate index, but that has to be
Mm.
set up first, right?
Yeah,
And,
of
and
course.
even then, I wouldn't trust it, because you need to make sure that there's also something called a robot.txt file, which is the
Mhm,
rules that you're telling Google. Let's say you are a company that's an HR company or a company that has a behind the scenes login for some secure content that
mhm.
that might actually be indexed. You might think it's password protected, but you don't have any
Oh,
rules there that say that it's not findable
oh.
with the engine.
So what you're saying is that the agent might just pull everything and stuff you don't want indexed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And it might have
Yeah.
duplications. It may not be looking at
Yes.
errors. And so it's really important to
Okay.
have someone doing this.
So it's so interesting that you're actually saying we need a human being to do this and not AI. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, just because you're writing on a website doesn't mean it's searchable. Now that in and of itself is revolutionary for a lot of people to hear because we just assume it's on the website.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, no, it's not. Google's too busy. You've got to work to actually get it to be searchable.
That's right.
That is fantastic advice. And you mentioned something called marketing syrup.
Yes.
Folks, go get that. And anybody can use Google Search Console. It's free. Okay. I love this. Anything else? What else can people
Yeah.
do?
Another big tip for people that I think is, and this one you can use AI for. You'll have to use your human and AI team. So every
Mm,
image, now Google can't see an image, right, on search.
mhm,
So you have what's called an alt tag. An alt tag is copy that explains what the image is, and that helps you get more keywords. It also is used for those who are accessible. Right? And now, 27% of users online are classified as disabled in some way. They might have
mm,
audio trouble, they might be visually impaired, but colorblind. So what they're using is readers to read through the site and to explain to them what they should be seeing. Right? So it's
mm,
for the engines, it's also for users. But in the past, we used to just write, like maybe if there's a picture of me, I'd say picture of Anna Covert. But now with
mm,
AI, what we do is this is a huge opportunity. Take your image, pop it into ChatGPT and ask it, say to it, please write me a detailed alt description of this image. My name is Anna Covert and I'm a Forbes author. You can give it a little prompt. You
Mhm.
want a location in there. Location stuff's very important too. Then you'll watch what you'll see. You will see the most amazing description. It is so detailed. And you just take that and pop that right into the alt description spot in your WordPress website or any website you're working in. There'll be a very clear spot where you should put the alt. And that's what you
Mhm.
should do. And when you're in marketing syrup and you're investigating your page, you'll see when you go to images that every image has this description there.
Mhm.
And that's going to help you put
Mm.
more keywords and a better user experience right away.
Mm. Fantastic. Because you're right. It would be just we used to just put woman sitting in window,
Right.
right? Or
Yeah.
right, you just put yeah. Okay, so you're saying we can make very long alt descriptions. Very long with like a bio almost,
I
right?
mean, no, but yes, you can. But depending on the user's experience, like if you hover typically over an image,
Mhm.
the alt will appear. So you don't want to be too long
Yes.
because then people who are not auto impaired will be like, oh, I can't
Mhm.
even see the content now because this lady's,
Right, but you could say, Anna Covert expert at,
right.
right?
And on my websites, if you go to my book website, I do. You can see, you can hover, or you can choose not
Mm.
to have a hover. And that's a way you can add more keywords,
Mm.
right? So that if someone's
Mm.
using a reader or they're using a special tool, they'll see it. But for those who are not, it's kind of just for the search engine itself. And then the
Mhm.
other really big one that I just actually learned recently is for H1. So H1 means header one, and it's usually a little like
Mhm.
arrow,
Yes.
arrow H1. And we used to,
Mhm.
for years, use that as a design styling tool. Like, oh, I just
Yes.
like the way the H1 looks better than H2, right?
Mhm.
But now that's a huge opportunity. Google is looking at H1 as key information about what is on that page. And you can only have one H1 per page or you get dinged because it doesn't know what's the most
Mm.
relevant thing on the page. So your
Mhm.
first title should be H1 and it should be very descriptive, right?
Mhm.
And then and make sure you only have one per page.
Okay, so if you have say let's say somebody's written a blog post, okay? They would do H1 for the title and then not put another H1 in that whole page.
Correct.
Okay, but what if there's a bunch of wait a minute, but there's a bunch of blog posts on one page, so you can only do it for one of the blog posts?
Well, you can't have more than one blog post on one page. There would be like a collection displaying a collection,
Yes.
right? So then that's
Mm.
fine, right? Because then on the
Oh,
blog page, you would have
yes, there's one.
hot new blogs from
Right. Okay,
Omar,
that's
whatever.
fascinating that they have targeted H1. I wouldn't have known that. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay, this is really good stuff here, Anna.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. So, anything else that helps people just to crack this code of the new algorithms?
Well, we talked a lot about on-site SEO, meaning on your
Mm.
website. The next
Mhm.
important part of the puzzle here is what's called off-site SEO, meaning that how Google gives you your score, your health score, right, is on-site. Do you have meta titles, meta descriptions, alt tags,
Mhm.
1H1, all these things?
Mhm.
And off-site, how many other sites that are credible? And they have, what we mean
Mm.
by credible means to us that they have more than 10,000 unique visitors a day, typically, which
Mm.
allows them to be on the ad exchange, meaning that you can run advertising on these third parties. That's the highest criteria of credibility, right? So
Mhm.
news sites or
Mhm.
magazines, people who've got lots of traffic and a lot of followers, right? They have a high
Mm.
red because of this traffic. So if you are
Mhm.
mentioned or listed on those third parties, now Google says, "Oh wow, you are a good match for the consumer." Remember what a search engine's job is. It is to match the consumer with the best
Mhm.
content, what they're looking for, right? Because
Mhm.
if you are looking for, a solar company near you, for instance, and you have to search and search and search and search, you're going to get tired. You're not going to use that engine. So you
Mm.
want to be found, you want to find what you're looking for really fast. And that's their job. So they say, okay, well, if these 5 news sites and are all pointing to this company, that means that they're credible, they're trustworthy, and they should be recommended higher than others.
Mm.
So it's called rank building
Okay.
and offsite rank building. There's some easy tools. So one of my favorites is EIN Newswire. So it is a
Mhm.
press release. It's like an online press release distribution service. And you pay
Mhm.
around, I think they just went up a little bit. They had deals though. You can do like a bundle of 7 releases for around $500 or so.
Mhm.
And then, and they cannot be promotional. It can't be like, oh, we're having a super sale or Black Friday. That's not
Right,
press.
right.
But if you have
No.
something meaningful to share that's consumer related and your business related, you can draft this release, and then with the pro package, you can have backlinks or links back to your content. And then
Mm-hmm.
those are picked up and distributed by hundreds of companies because, when you have a news service or a large buzz feed, right? They're looking
Mm-hmm.
for lots of content. So they syndicate, they feed it into their sites.
Mm-hmm.
And because they have a high rank, now your links or backlinks
Mm.
are on all these other places. And some of them are called what's called no follow, meaning you don't really get
Yes.
the full value, which is annoying, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even then, there is a collective benefit of having, your name and your URL out there, and then some are follow links. And
Mm-hmm.
the things like that, or the other way is to, have a service where or if you really want to be really, really, first at it, you can look at places or companies that are like your industry related. For example, if you're working with, in maybe healthcare, and you have a
Mm-hmm.
device for, heart monitoring. Well, if you can get
Mm-hmm.
mentioned on the American Heart Association's website as a featured, writer, or you write a blog and they talk about you, then you can reach out to them independently, and you can even sometimes pay to have these articles
Mm-hmm.
written about you, and those have high value.
Mm. Okay, awesome. Some of this is not new because we've known about the press release thing for a
Right.
while. Okay, so that kind of it. Anything else people can do?
Those are the pretty much the easiest things that you can do. I mean, the next one would be obviously to, advertise, right? Now with
Mm.
search, even though and fraud is on the rise, right? Now 60% of all traffic is considered fraudulent in some way, which can be very deceiving and disheartening, right? Especially when you're
Mm.
spending all this time and getting traffic, and like, well, why is it converting? Right. Well, it turns
Mm.
out that it's bots, right? And there's
Mm.
easy to detect bots and there's sophisticated bots. Now, if you're just doing organic traffic, it's not as upsetting as if you're paying,
Mhm.
and then you're paying for paid
Yes.
traffic, right?
Yes.
But it's important to
Okay,
know
so
universally.
quick question. So you're running ads and you're getting the fake bots. Who's sending the bots? Is it Google and Meta sending the bots to make it look like you're getting results?
Sure is. So it's Google,
Uh-huh.
it's Facebook, it's Microsoft clicking on their own ads to inflate their own revenue. A lot of people don't realize this,
Wow.
but a couple of years ago, it was like 3 or 4 years ago, when Google had, kind of a monopoly. They thought, they thought they did. They were the big bad
Mm.
one, and they were serving impressions like drunk sailors all over, right?
Mhm.
But how they made money was based off of the cost per click. So let's say in
Yes.
one of the campaigns, someone was bidding very low, like, 50 cents a click. And for years,
Mhm.
they set and forget. They haven't been into Google. It's been working. But now here, Google is serving hundreds of thousands of impressions. Well, what if
Mm.
no one clicks on them, right? What
Mhm.
happened is Google was in financial trouble that they don't talk about. So because they
Mm.
didn't have money to pay all these advertisements. Because every time an
Mm.
impression runs on a third party like Yahoo, Google has to pay Yahoo no matter what. But they were only getting paid if
Mm.
someone clicked. So what did they do?
Mm.
They did two things. One, they changed their bidding strategies. Before, there were 8 ways to bid on Google. Now there are only three, and two are controlled by Google, and one is one we can control, which is called Max
Mhm.
CPC, which is my favorite. Right? I'm only
Mhm.
willing to spend this, the maximum cost per click. Right?
Mhm.
And I have free resources if people want to download it and do a
Sure.
checklist to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of on my website. But
Mhm.
so what they did is they changed the bid strategy. And the second thing is they deployed bots to click on their ads to inflate their revenue to make sure they had money to pay these bills.
Okay. That's actually illegal.
Yes, sure
That's
is.
a crime.
Yep.
Okay. But they've never been prosecuted for this.
Oh, well, there is, so 2 years ago, April of 2024 is when the first antitrust lawsuit was accepted, right?
Mhm.
And it basically showed they had a monopoly of the what's called ad exchange. So there are buyers,
Mhm.
right? So we are, as an
Mhm.
advertiser, we have my client, we're buying advertising. So that's the buyer
Mhm.
side. Then in the middle
Mm.
is what's called the ad exchange, which is like an auction. To think of it like the stock market, but it never sleeps, right? And
Mhm.
then on the left side is the suppliers. Suppliers could be
Mm.
other websites, they could be applications, apps, mobile
Mhm.
games, they could be television, streaming services, audio services.
Mhm.
Those are the
Mhm.
suppliers. So on every side of this exchange, Google is there, right? And
Mm.
so even with someone like myself or other, ethical, and my kind of that's my claim to fame is ethics that I really care about with the
Mm.
consumer, is that even in the best case scenario, I still or my client still has to pay Google once or like one and a half times. But if you don't know what you're
Mm.
doing, or you're doing it yourself or with the wrong people, you might pay three times. And Google's marking it up
Mm.
all along the way. So that was part of this trust. And then actually just last 2 weeks ago was the case in Washington. And on my podcast, I will be having some of the girls, they're in part of a nonprofit. They're going to be sharing more about what they learned there. They testified. But the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line, I'll tell you, it's not good news. We thought that Google was going to have to sell off something like YouTube because of
Mm-hmm.
the ability to now control and manipulate. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be the case. They do not have to sell Chrome. They do not have to sell YouTube, and they're going to be able to keep their agreement with Apple. So they actually pay. Apple pays Google every year to make Chrome their default browser. And when you think it
Yes.
might be Safari, it's not. It's Chrome, right?
No,
Kind of,
it's Chrome. I
yes.
know that.
And so
Yes.
that was a huge part of this, monopoly, because even when you think that you're not, you are, and they're
You
not going to have to
are.
change that either. So it's really, and now they're saying that they're not using first party data, and so it's we're still far away from a solution, and I don't think it's gonna anytime soon change. So people need to be on
No,
super
no.
alert.
And so basically the bottom line is only do max CPC. That's it.
That's right. And only on the search network. So, because here's the thing, there's three different types of strategies. There's display, partner search, and then Google search. But if
Mm-hmm.
you advertise on Google, they don't have to pay anyone. So it's opportunity cost.
Mm,
If
mm,
they're basically just going to look at who's bidding the highest and they're going to try to maximize their revenue, but they don't have to pay
mm-hmm,
anyone if no one clicks.
mm,
Right. So,
mm,
and then you can use my favorite tool. It's called ClickCease. And
mm-hmm,
ClickCease is a Tel Aviv company, and they are wonderful. And you can sign up for a 14-day free trial, and you'll see immediately. And then even that is really cheap, for like $65 a month
mm-hmm,
for cross domain.
mm-hmm.
And you can connect Google Ads, you can connect Meta. Now, Microsoft, there's no direct connection, and that should worry you, right? And because there's a lot of fraud
Mm-hmm.
there. There's other ways you can, try to mitigate it. Which again, I have some
Mm-hmm.
free resources in my book talks about it. But
Okay, so click C's. How do you spell that?
CLEASE. Oh, sorry. Click CLICK and then cease. CEASE.
Oh, cease. Click
Cease.
cease,
Yes.
not cease.
Yes.
Okay, so this is really interesting information. It's really the truth about Google, right? Okay. Wow. No wonder ads are not working. And Facebook does the same,
Yes.
right? They're having bots. Because I had a client who did some ads and she said this was a bunch of fake people and I paid money for a bunch of these are clearly bots. I
Yeah.
said, "Yep." Okay, so this is just a bunch of illegal behavior they're getting away with.
That's right.
Boom.
That's
I
it.
had to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about the fraud stuff? How can people protect themselves from online fraud
Well,
apart from this?
yeah. So there's that. The other thing to do is, I would say, use your intuition. Really, we and people must stop thinking, "Oh, I'm just not technical." Right?
Mm,
That has to we have to
mm,
put that in the past, because we are all
yes.
technical. We all have smartphones. This is the world we live in,
Yes.
and you must trust your instincts. And when the data does not match up, you have to push the brakes quickly. Because what I'll tell you is that the reason I even wrote my book is it was
Mm,
last year. I finally had enough. I had clients calling, crying on the phone to me,
mhm,
that because they have been taken advantage of. The last agency told them to spend more money. And I want everyone to know out there,
mm,
no matter what you're doing, it should
mhm.
have some measurable result. The answer is
Yes.
not to throw more money at it. The answer is to pause it. People are so scared of, they're, especially when they're in a
Mm,
business that's maybe, oh, what if we go offline, then we're not going to get any business. No, that's not the case. This is fake. This is fake, right? Take a deep
mm,
breath, pause it, evaluate. Is there a problem with your website? Go use mobile.
mm,
Is a button hidden? You can't click on the button to shop. You know,
mhm.
really go through it, and and you can use AI now too to say, hey, my website's not performing. Give it a link and say,
Why?
why isn't it performing? What can we do? What can I try to make it better? And
Mhm,
then make sure you have the protection in place, and then really get that conversion rate right. When in
mhm.
Israel traffic, if they're still not converting, then there's something wrong with your story.
At that point, it's a marketing and messaging problem and to whom. But so interesting you said that because so many digital marketers are just saying, "You just need to spend more money on
That's
ads."
right.
Okay? They just say, "Just spend more money. Just keep spending more money." And I'm sitting there cringing thinking, "Oh my gosh, they're actually just having people just put more money in the slot machine that
Yeah.
is never going to win." So, thank you for being very transparent on this show to help people because you are helping a lot of people by telling them the truth
Yes.
here. Okay. So, let's talk about like just consumer protection. You're correct. Google, I run YouTube ads, just small ads, for my podcast. But I'm continually getting emails and stuff from Google, and we're going to look at this. And I'm like, I don't want to look at this. Are those fake bots sending me all that stuff?
That's great. So, no, those are actually real people. But you're onto something, because what I'll tell you
Mm.
is this is another strategy you should be able to look out for. So every quarter, Google will
Mhm.
change your rep. Okay, let's stop there for a minute. Now
Mm.
think about it. If you're going to you go to a hairdresser, and you went to the
Mhm.
hairdresser and you started to, you get a new haircut, you love it. You're having a
Mm.
connection with your hairdresser. You go
Mhm.
back and you're really building this relationship. And now 3 months later or 4 months later, you go back and your hairdresser, you're not allowed to see her anymore. And you're like,
Mhm.
what? I've got to start with a new hairdresser?
Mhm.
What? Does that make any sense? You think you want to be building a connection long term, right? Cool.
Mhm.
That's where right away you should start thinking, why does Google not want you to have a connection long term? And it's for their
Mm.
rep too. Because what happens
Mhm.
is that they start to realize, like, oh, well, these strategies aren't working that Google had told us to do.
Mm.
And now they have a connection with this person. And now they're starting to doubt what they're selling. Right. So that's why they
Mm.
give them a new script. This is what you're going to sell. They rotate down.
Mhm.
So there's no attachment. So my
Mm.
recommendation is not to talk to the Google people.
No, I don't want to talk to them
Yeah.
because they didn't know what they were talking about. They
Yeah.
literally didn't know anything. And I said, you don't understand what I'm trying to do here. Why are we even chatting? And I was curious, but we're going to up level and we're going to get a better plan. And I think the plan is just having me spend more.
That's
Is that the
exactly
plan?
it. That's it.
Yeah, that's just the plan. Okay. So I ignore that now. And I'm like, no, I'm good. All right. So this has been very interesting. So basically, this is the truth about online search here, right? Okay. So what are some other things people can do to protect themselves? I mean, this has been great advice so far, but what else? What else have you got? Is this kind of it?
Well, no, I think that most, what you want to be asking yourself, and because marketing is a math problem, and we know that we're talking about how to get the traffic to the site, right? And let's say if they're real, we assume they're real now because we've blocked the bots, but then
Mm.
what, right? And there's a equation called critical mass messaging that says that we
Mhm.
have to target the same person with 4 to 7 messages over 7 to 10 days, right? If you don't
Yes.
remember any of that, or just say it takes 7 to win, right? You need
7 touches. We know that about marketing.
Right.
Yes.
And so my favorite tool to use is remarketing, which is I like to call cyber stalking. So if
Mm-hmm.
and you could experience it if you go to any of my websites, I'll fight over you. You'll see me on TV, you'll see me everywhere. And know that that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't cost very much, right? Because you're targeting
Mm-hmm.
someone who is real, who has already engaged with you. And
Mm.
then the most important thing when picking a partner is to ask them these questions. How are you going to prove to me that the impression ran? Right.
Mm.
And if they're like, oh, we can't, well, then goodbye, because you can't. You
Mm-hmm.
can either host the creative externally or on
Mm-hmm.
places like StackAdapt, which is one of my favorite engines, you can add
Mm-hmm.
a third-party pixel into the creative. So when it's
Mm-hmm.
exposed, when the display ad or the video ad or the audio ad are played or seen, that pixel
Mm-hmm.
exposes itself. It's called a viewability rate, right? A lot of
Mm.
times, and there's a lot of ways to be frauded, right? But when you deliver an ad, so let's say you go to yahoo.com and you see an ad deliver. Now, if you
Mhm,
stayed right there on the page, once that ad is over, what happens? Well, another ad usually runs behind that
mhm,
container. It's called a loop
mhm.
container. Sometimes it's the
Yes.
same ad, sometimes it's not, right? But a
Mhm,
way to be frauded is depending on who's delivering that container, they might
mhm.
layer, and they do, like they layer ads behind that container. But they
Mm.
will charge you even if it's not viewed.
Wow.
If it's just delivered, right? So that's another easy way, or they have what's called a click bubble. So you can actually on the browser, right? Someone can say that they want to have it's called a click bubble, and they ripple through all of the ads on the page to say that
Mhm,
they were clicked on, right? And then you might be like, well, wait a
mm,
minute, I would know if I clicked on things, but because of
mm.
JavaScript, it opens up in the background. You don't know that you've clicked.
Also dishonest.
Right.
Also dishonest
Yeah.
because nobody's seen the ad that's technically in the back end. They're saying it's like in a group. So it's in the group, but it's behind. You can't see them.
It was
So
delivered,
you
but not seen.
delivered, but nobody can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like saying, somebody delivered a piece of mail, but they threw it away when they delivered it and they were at your door and then they burned it,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
I said, we delivered it. Yeah, but you just burned it. Wow, this is very upsetting in some ways. I didn't know all this.
Yes.
Okay, so there's really nothing you can do about that, right? I mean, how can you say, hey, don't make my ad
Well,
be
again,
hidden?
you can pick the right partners. There are partners. So like StackAdapt, we can create a third party pixel that is, exposed.
Mhm.
Comcast. There are good guys out there, right? And then
Mm.
there are, if you're going to be buying, if you're a big boy, you're buying big media. Make sure that human is an amazing fraud prevention third party. It's very expensive. It's only for enterprise,
Mhm.
but they can,
Mhm.
report back all kinds of details to make sure that even before it's potentially delivered, that they know that they're so
Mm.
amazing. They know a lot, and just
Mhm.
know that it's not getting any easier. But the most important thing is that you are using your spidey senses and intuition to stop and say, it
Mm.
doesn't feel right, right? You're
Mm.
going to be like when you get an email, right? It looks like it's from someone you know. The first thing you do is
Mm.
look at who sent it. Is the domain the
Mm.
same? Or,
Mm.
or even Zoom can be what's called deep faked, or
Oh,
calls
for
can be
sure.
faked, right?
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
always getting emails and I always look at the address and it's some weird number at some weird address. Obviously, they're always trying to get your details, but always look, that it must say at zoom.us or zoom.com because when you really look, a lot of them are fake,
that's right. And then
you know.
even another scam that's out right now is when someone will text you and they'll ask a question like, "Oh, is this Jenny?" Don't
Right,
reply to
right.
those, because some of the
No, of course
opt-in
not.
texts, they require you to answer once or twice so that they can then cue you in. So
Yes.
don't even respond. Like, no, let's
I,
even
I
there.
just block
Just
those
block them
people
right
immediately.
away. Exactly. If they don't
Yeah.
know who you are, you just block right away.
Or I love the ones that say, "Hi, how are you?"
Yeah.
Okay. Or and they want you to say, "I'm fine," or
Who's
"Who
this?
are you?"
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't say, "Who's this?" I block
That's right. Me too.
because you're right. Once you engage in a scam, you get on a scam list. Once you've answered, then you're a target because then you're added to, "Oh, that's a sucker right there."
The
And then you
sucker
get a bunch.
list.
Did you know that?
The deep,
Once you
yeah, the black, like
Yeah, then you're
the
on, like,
dark
the
web
the
list.
sucker list.
Yeah.
So stay off the sucker list, folks, by not biting because if it were that important and you knew them, they would not go, "How are you doing?" Nobody does that,
No,
right?
no.
No one does
Well,
that.
you'd have a chain. If you know them, they'd be in your phone already, and they would have a chain
Exactly.
with you.
You would. Or is this so and so? And you'd be like, "Nope, it's not." But now you've just answered.
Yes,
So best thing is just to answer nothing. If somebody really wants to get through to you because they know you, they will.
they will.
They will. They'll call you and say, "Hey," but there's deep fakes now where they're calling and it sounds just like your mom.
I know.
Like the deep fake has gone so far.
It's
It's
so scary.
scary.
So I think with me,
Yeah.
my mom, my daughter, we're having like, it's kind of like security words of things that we would
Mhm.
say. If,
Yeah.
if someone's like, "Oh, I've been kidnapped and I need money," it's like, okay, well, we have a security word.
What's your keyword?
Well, I could tell it online, but
No, 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 I'm not telling you. I'm saying you would say to
yeah,
the
yeah,
person,
exactly. Like, what's the key?
well, I'm not
Exactly.
asking you for the keyword.
Right.
I'm saying you would then say, "What's the keyword?"
Right. Exactly.
And they don't say it. You're like, "Okay,
Well, you
hang
have to
up."
question like,
Okay.
what ball am I holding? And then
Yeah,
they answer the
exactly.
question,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's if I feel so bad for here in Hawaii, we call them kapuna, which means elderly,
Mm.
our elderly community,
Mm.
and it's so traumatic for them that they don't even stop to think because they're so upset and so afraid. I had a
Yes.
friend who her mother went, or her grandmother drove down to the where they transfer money.
The bank.
Not the bank, like the
Like Western
Western Union,
Union.
Western Union. And
Yeah,
they were like, "Ma'am," and they wouldn't send the money. And then she was so upset. Even then, she didn't think to pick up the phone and call her granddaughter. This was
yeah.
her.
Oh, but Western Union knew it was a scam and
Yeah.
said, "We're not doing
And then
this."
she
And
goes
then
to
she got
another
mad at them.
one. And then
Yeah.
finally, then she calmed down enough to call. And
Mhm,
then she realized
mhm,
that they were right at home safe, right? So
mm.
it's so upsetting for them that it's very, destructive.
But, a lot of the shops are onto this because a friend of mine, believe it or not, her husband, who's very smart, for some reason he was tired that day, and they said, "Oh, your bank's doing this," and so they make it the bank, and then he went to some shop to get like cash or something, and they said, "Are you sure?" And they know, and they said, "Are you sure this is not a scam?" "No, no, I'm good." They said, "Are you sure this is not a scam?" Because they see that.
Yeah.
Okay. And he ended up sending money. And my friend was like, "Why did you do that?" I said, "Because they are so good at keying into your fears of the bank and they made out like the bank was the fake." Okay. And he was so confused. This is a very smart person.
Yeah.
And I said, she goes, "I just can't believe it." I said, "That is how smart they are, that they don't believe what the bank says." And actually at the shop where he was getting the cash, I don't know, maybe he was buying, I don't know, something, but they kind of had seen that before.
Yeah.
And she said, even the people at the shop said, is this a scam? He goes, no, no, no. So he ends up, sending them thousands of
Oh
dollars.
my gosh. It's
And
awful.
it's not that he's dumb, but they said something that they'd obviously done a search with AI and they'd probably hacked into stuff to see what his fears were.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, the bank is going to do this. He's like, "Oh," and they don't listen to the bank, because actually if somebody calls you from the bank, that's a fake. So then you think the bank is fake. But anyway, it's just mind blowing what goes on. So Anna, thank you so much for turning up and educating people. What's your website again?
My book website is thecovertcode.com. And that's the
Okay,
one that I think everyone should go to, because I have all the free resources there that you can download a checklist if you're using Google Ads. You can also go to my partners link, and there's links to ClickCease there. And, they're affiliate
great.
links. So we do a donation. I do a donation to Maui, because we had fires here.
Mhm.
So if you want to try it out and you want to use the affiliate link, we help Maui out.
Great.
Yeah.
So it's thecovertcode.com.
Yes, correct. Or you can just Google me on the first 3 or 4 pages.
Sure, but let's just stick with that.
Yep.
Thecovertcode.com, get the freebies.
Yep.
So Anna, what's something you're very successful, and I know, you've had ups and downs in your life. What is some mindset or philosophy that you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, recently in the last 7 months, 6 or 7 months, I've been really getting into Dr. Joe Dispenza and meditation. And so I think, like breaking the habit of being yourself is something that I have found to be very powerful. And just, the quieting of the mind and like leaving this room for the unknown. So now every morning I used to always get up early at 4 and go right to the gym. But now I like to take a whole nother hour or maybe even more and do a meditation before I even get to the gym. And I found it to be
Mm.
just transformative. I feel so relaxed and, and at peace and just becoming more aware. And I recommend that for everyone.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this highly valuable, as I have, and we'll see you on the next show. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.